Hey, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. This show is just for construction and contracting business owners like you, people who are curious to find ways to work smarter, not just harder all the time. And I hope you've realized this if you've heard any of the other episodes. You don't need a lot of extra time or a business degree to build a profitable and solid construction company. You need simple systems. I talk about that a lot on the show, right? So this interview today is an expert interview. And sometimes we share case studies. Today's an interview, but you're always going to hear from people on the show who are probably a lot like you. People in family businesses, people who have partnerships, people who are doing it solo. You're running it on your own. But either way, whoever you are, you probably have a crazy work ethic that other people just can't even understand. And for us and you, it's normal. Listen, if that sounds a little bit like you, you're going to like the show. I'll tell you right now, what we talk about here is directed at companies with 6, 7 employees, if not 10 or 20 and more. And that includes subcontractors. Now, if you're smaller than that, doesn't mean you're not going to find value, but you're going to be challenged a little bit more. And I'm okay with that. I should also remind you in my regular life, when I'm not hosting the podcast, we do 6 episodes a month, by the way. My company works with no nonsense business owners of construction companies, the kind of company where the business owner has finally realized, hey, I'm actually trying to grow a business here. So we specialize in strategic planning, business coaching, and all of the things that help the business owner turn the company around and make it run the way they want, right? So from the president all the way through the foreman to your admin bookkeeper to estimating through to marketing. So we do private one-on-one coaching, we do boot camps and specialty programs every once in a while. Now, as a business coach, as your business coach, at least for the show, I want to challenge you to pull something out of this interview we're doing with Eric Law. Eric is the CEO of Urban Machine. He's the co-founder and CEO of It's Robotics for Reclaiming Lumber. Very cool. I know you're going to like this. It's the wave of the future. He's a great guy, really good interview. And we're going to be talking about how robots are going to help us reclaim lumber. So I just want you to think, how will that apply in my business? What can I learn from this? Now, for some of you, you're going to go, oh my God, I know exactly what I'm going to do with that. Others, you're going to say, well, that's interesting and it's curious and I'm going to learn some good business things, but I don't know how I'm going to apply it. Either way, don't be afraid of the new information because new technology is always coming. And at least being able to talk about it or understand it is extremely important. There may come a day when you go to submit a bid and a piece of robotics is going to be the game changer to help you make out like a bandit on gross profit margin on that thing. So let's see the world through Eric Law's eyes. And I want you to find some nuggets of wisdom. Let's get to the show. Mr. Eric Law, how are you?
Doing great, Dominic.
I'm excited to have you here. I feel like I'm in the future. I'm already there.
With the wood behind me, right?
Yeah, I know. We still get held to what our core is, right? Taking wood and making beautiful things out of it. But yeah, it's like today we're going to talk about the Terminator aspect of construction. The Terminator, like as in the TV show. Yeah, maybe that was the wrong analogy.
Hey, it's robots, right?
It's a robot. Well, today, actually, what a good segue. It's a robot love story. It's a robot love story. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation talking about, how robotics is moving into the trades, your part in it, which is pretty cool. And your thoughts, of course, on starting your business and getting to where you are now and how we can expect to see that in the future impacting us in the construction trades. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question here. You ready for this big question?
Sure.
Eric Law, who the heck are you? And how does it come to be that you're speaking to all these forward-facing business owners and contractors all over the world?
Exactly. How did I trip on to end up recycling lumber with robots, right?
Yeah.
You trip on this problem. So it started, my last project, I built an innovation program for a large general contractor where we focused on bringing in robots to augment the construction trades. Craft shortage, and we were bringing in robots. And while I was there, I got involved with an initiative to look at sustainability, right? Let's look at our waste streams, because in construction, we generate a lot of waste.
Yeah.
Right? Concrete, steel, and demolition and wood. And what I learned was, both concrete and steel have recycle paths, but wood did not. Wood was going to landfills, wood was getting incinerated, it was not getting reused again. And when I started to dig into it further and find out, why is this? Everybody came back and said it's the cost to get the metal out. right? Hand leaning wood. Everybody's pulled nails.
Yeah.
That all right. Nobody ever raises their hand and said, yeah, I loved it. I want to do it again.
It was my job for a while. When I was the new guy on the framing crew, that was, I think, part of my job description.
Yeah. Every apprentice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's a massive problem. 37 million tons of dimensional lumber just in the United States gets tossed on an annual basis.
Really, that high? I really thought it would get used.
No, it does not. Just truckload after truckload, which is about half of what we log from the softwood forest here in the U.S. It's landfilled or burned.
So we're talking about, let's say we're building forms for a building, and there's 2x4s, 2x6s used for the forms. That stuff just gets chucked. It doesn't get reused, or
a lot of them get chucked today. They used to, when they first started building houses, they take the formwork and you'd see it show up in the framing.
Right.
And so, when you're taking apart a house, why is this roof rafter covered in concrete? Because
yeah.
No, these days they just chuck it all. It's just all single use. Time is money. They don't want to pull the nails out of it. They don't want to think. They chuck it, and and what's interesting is that's only about 10% of the problem. The other 90% is all those wood houses. When somebody wants to remodel, they just tear them all down. So they take all that wood, smash it up, and it can be apartment buildings, warehouses. If you look at use over the last 100 and something years here in North America, it's the predominant building material.
Right. Yeah.
So as those buildings, everybody wants to build denser cities with high-rise apartment buildings. So they smash up all those single-story, two-story wood structures and send them to a landfill or incinerator. And it's billions of board feet have been used over the years.
I would think as well that those landfills, as they run out of space, they're looking for a more efficient use of like what's getting put in there. So things like wood that could be used somewhere else that takes up, obviously when they go into the landfill, they're not stacked nicely and
right.
They're just jumbled in there and then crunched again and again. But still, that's a lot of voids and waste. And
it is. They do puree it. They turn it into chips.
Is it called puree? Is that what they do?
Well, I think they chip it up and turn it into alternative daily cover and some other funky names for it. But yeah, they do chip it up so they can maximize the density there. And then some magnets to get the metal out. But it's not a good use for the wood. Right. And so at the end of the day, it's like, here's this beautiful, natural, high strength material that did a great job holding a building up. Let's keep it in the buildings, especially environmental benefits of sequestering carbon. And so I reached out to, some folks I knew. One was a roboticist who I'd worked with on some other projects. And I, could we automate the process of pulling nails and screws out of lumber? And he's like, absolutely. That was about 2 years ago. And so since then, we've built 3 engineering prototypes. We're on our 4th version, and the 4th version is now at a lumber yard pulling nails out of waste lumber coming from demolition contractors.
Yeah, I've seen the video. And refresh my memory. Was it on your website or was it on YouTube that you have the
video is on the YouTube? Yeah.
Usually we do this at the end, but some people might be super interested. Where's your YouTube channel, or what's it called?
Yeah, just search for Urban Machine on YouTube, and
we'll find you there. So it pulls out what? Nails, screws, staples, cleats, and anchors. Like, what's it able to remove?
Yeah, so it's the nails, the screws, and the staples. Those are the 3 fasteners that were removed because they're the most predominant fasteners.
Right.
If you look at big lag bolts, structural fasteners, Simpson ties, they're a much lower volume one, and they're all different shapes and sizes. So we still have to do that. Just because it's not as repetitive. The machines love highly repetitive tasks that they can just do over and over again. The things that us humans get bored at. That's what we can.
So you're an inventor then. Are you an engineer? Are you an architect? What's your background?
My background is mechanical engineering. I've had a interesting career over 20 something years. I graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering. Worked for a construction company, being a project engineer, doing water treatment plants and transit projects. Went to work for a software startup, worked for a larger software startup, started my own software company that got acquired, after 9 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Back to the contractors. And then here I am launching a robotics company.
Yeah, no kidding. It's got to be exciting.
It is.
Did you guys have to invent your own pieces of machinery, or is this, you're nodding your head yes, or did you just reuse other well-known methods for grasping, pulling, I can only imagine levering, unscrewing.
Built everything. Yeah, nobody's automated the nail pulling process, right? You got pry bars at the hardware store and a whole bunch of hand tools.
Oh yeah, I talk about it here all the time. I love that Fat Max wrecking bar, but I don't need one. But I look at it every time. I'm like, I need that thing. And I realize I don't need that thing. It's going the wrong direction in my life, but I love it.
Yeah. So we built all of our own end effectors. We wrote all of our own software. We trained our own AI algorithms on recognizing the fasteners. We had to do everything from scratch, being the first ones to do this.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that came up in building this robot that you didn't anticipate?
So definitely fastener orientation, right? When you start pulling them out, depending on the orientation, how it's smashed down depends on where you grab it.
Right.
Some are way easier than others. If it's surprising, if they're bent over, if the nail's like half smashed back into the wood, those are actually the easiest to remove.
Oh, why? Just because you have more to grab?
Grab the middle of it and you just pull on it, and half of it sticks out the side of the end effector and the other half comes right out.
Oh, okay.
It makes a great noise. When we're pulling 16 penny nails out of 2x4s, we've actually got a video. I'll have to see if it's on our YouTube channel or not, but it's just a video of pulling nails that make this kind of noise as the nail comes out of the wood.
Yeah, screeching noise. There's not a cat to be found within miles, I'm sure, just hearing that screeching noise. And then how about screws? How do you guys get screws out? Do you back them out or do you just...
Yeah, we are backing them out because unfortunately, if you pull on them, they just shear.
Right. Yeah, as they're meant to do. Screws are meant to shear and nails are meant to bend, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. What were the problems that you guys encountered that you didn't even anticipate?
So early on, we thought we'd set up, manufacturing facilities and we'd have dump trucks coming and delivering wood to us. And when those first couple trucks, we were doing some test loads in our shop, dumped into the shop, the wood went rocketing across the floor and actually smashed into one of our prototypes.
You know what's funny? I saw that piece where it smashed into one of your prototypes and you probably, it's okay to admit this at our age. Did you cry a little bit that day?
It hurt a little bit, especially since I did the welding on that prototype. It's and my weld didn't hold, they actually broke. But they weren't out designed for that big a hit. Luckily, it didn't hit anything real fragile. It didn't hit any end effectors. It was just a frame that got damaged.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, we're back up and running. But what we learned real quick is moving waste lumber around is expensive and difficult. And so that's when we decided, let's pivot this and go to a mobile unit. Let's go to the demolition site. Let's go to the waste facility where the material already is and reduce the handling of that material. Also improves the quality, which is awesome.
Yeah. Maybe we should take a step back and think about the footprint of this thing. You just mentioned towing it to site. If you don't mind, give us some comparables. Like people are listening to this as they're driving, so they can't necessarily see us talking on YouTube here. But yeah, go ahead and visualize this for us.
Yeah, so our trailers are 40 foot long flat decks that hold all the equipment. And then when we get to the job site, we take all the equipment off the trailer and we set up about a 60-foot long process line. So we're doing about 60 feet long, about 50 to 100 feet wide, depending on the size of material and volume we're processing. So we're running about 3 to 6,000 square foot footprint.
Okay.
Equipment and for the work area.
So that's why you want to go to a centralized facility, because if you're in a dense city location, it's hard to find that much free space if you're demolishing and setting this up. And
yep, exactly.
Yeah. What's that? This is one of the biggest questions I have. What's the market value of that 2x4 once the nails have come out? Is it the same, or am I going to get like a 30% discount on that piece of 2x4?
It depends on the age of the 2x4, right? If it's an actual 2-inch by 4-inch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Rough sawed hemlock.
You're paying seasoned. Like, oh yeah, beautiful tight grain, architecture, phenomenal, right? You can do all kinds of things with it. If it's your standard run-of-the-mill 2x4 that's 20, 30 years old, it's probably the same price as a virgin one at the Home Depot.
And is that the reason that this robot exists, is to put more product back into the market, or is it because we're reclaiming stuff that normally, I know we talked about this, but is it reclaiming the stuff that normally would have gone to the landfill, or is it so that you have a product at the end?
So both. So, sourcing stuff that's going to the landfill, because right now there's not enough value to justify hand denailing it, right? Getting everybody out, it's just too expensive. And so our goal is to bring that cost down so we can recover large volumes of it to get it back into the building. We call it salvaging the past and build again, to build the future with old material. And it's great material. You got to get the metal fasteners out.
Right. Yeah. Well, because you don't want somebody running a saw through it later and hitting a...
Nope.
You probably know some very interesting data that none of us have ever thought about before, but I'm about to introduce some campfire trivia to all of this. What's the average number of fasteners in an 8-foot 2x4? And you could say 8 or 10-foot 2, whatever is standard 2x4 is.
Ooh, actually, I don't know that one off the top of my head, but I can go ping my engineers and they'll get it to me. I'll share it with you after the show.
You mean I created a question? That's great. See, scientific process.
Really?
You have to guess. Is it like 2 per end, or is it, just thinking about framing?
It's somewhere between, because what you end up with is you've obviously got the ends, but then you got blocks in the middle. Right. Then you got all the MEP, right? That tends to have
little nails. Yeah.
Little nails hold them in there. So on a typical 2x4 stud, you're probably a dozen fasteners for 2x4. You get into like roof rafters or joists in like an office building, for example.
Oh, then.
And you got lots of MEP hanging off of those things. You're, way more.
Yeah. And just some people might not be familiar with MEP if they don't have a civil commercial background, but that stands for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So, right? Did I get that right?
Got it.
Yeah. But that's all the little fasteners that are holding in the clamps and just everything else, the nail guards and stuff like that. Yeah. What surprised you guys then as you're doing this? Was there something easier than you thought it would be, or like 10 times harder than you thought it would be?
Nothing's been like huge, like 10 times harder. Mostly it's been the reproducibility, right? We'll get like a board and we'll train our algorithms, and then suddenly you end up with a whole new group of fasteners coming in. Like you'll get this really old wood. We just brought some test pieces in from an old agricultural farm. And this guy said, "Hey, I'm taking down all these old ag buildings. I want to use your system on it." And we're like, "Great, That's a couple test pieces of material for us to take a look at." And somebody went nuts with some stainless steel ring shank nails on this thing, on this old 50-year-old material. So it's beautiful material with these big shiny stainless steel fasteners in it, and they're ring shanks, which is really hard to get out.
Oh, it is. Well, I guess it's all just like a screw, right? It's got all those rings that are there for grip.
It is tough. The good news is we can pull on them. It just takes more force, and sometimes it damages the wood more. But on these, because of this grade age patina, they don't want any damage on the surface. And so we're trying to figure out how do we minimize this damage to this material. But it's beautiful material. And that's probably one of the biggest wins is we get exposed to material that it's like, wow, I didn't know wood would age like that.
Yeah.
The Grow project is out on the Pacific Ocean here in California. And so it's been exposed to the marine layer for a long time in this agricultural industry. And it's got this beautiful gray patina on it. I mean, the architects are going to go nuts for this when it comes to market here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But it's just phenomenal material. It's been sitting there aging. I think the building was shut down like 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, so it's just been sitting there, just soaking in the environment, taking on the color.
Yep.
Yeah. I live in a very old home, and I think the wood here is hemlock, but you can't drive a nail into it. And it's full of square nails. Do you remember square nails?
Yeah.
Sorry. I asked the nail expert, do you remember square nails? It's full of square nails, but if I go to drive a nail into it or cut a piece of that wood, I'm going to wreck a saw blade. It's basically iron.
And it's interesting looking at the history of what wood has been used in what areas, right? Mostly on the West Coast, it's predominantly Doug firs. You go to the Northeast, North U.S., Canada, and it's every species under the sun. I mean, they built houses out of oak, right? Because they had it.
They had it, yeah.
They had oak trees, so they built houses with oak back there, right?
Yeah.
All different kinds of species of wood, which is cool. So as we expand, we'll be seeing a lot of different species of wood that gets reclaimed versus tossed out.
Yeah. Talking about regionalization, regional specialties. I have a second podcast. It's just for cabinetry and architectural millwork, right? And I was talking to a gentleman, believe it or not, he's a cabinet maker in Jamaica.
Ooh.
Yeah, great guy. So he takes me through a virtual tour of his cabinet shop there. And he's got live edge mahogany slabs laying everywhere. But then he's got his special material, which is poplar.
Really?
And, here poplar is soft. It's, it's not in this market, it has a different take than it does over there, right? Over there, it's the premium wood and the mahogany is just everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's a total, like it's just the perspective of what you've got where you are, right?
Yeah. The look like wood isn't worth as much as the stuff you import, right?
Yeah, right. It's always the same, right? Always the same. Yeah, I guess as you do this stuff, is there any applications outside of building material, like recycling, like lots of pallets? And not that the pallet would necessarily need to be that has another use, but there's got to be somebody who wants that kind of material.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're going to be looking at on our roadmap. The challenge with pallet material is it's such a low grade to begin with.
Yeah, right. It's not.
It's just, you can't put it in a building, right? It can only go back as pallet material or artistic projects, right? You see some people take pallets and use them for artistic things, but that's obviously not high volume. So we're actually chatting with a couple companies about, how do you reclaim all this crate wood, right? And it's your standard pallet, but, custom pallets and custom dunnage that they build for shipping stuff all over the world. What do you do with it? Because they're all different shapes and sizes.
Well, and wood materials, because what I was thinking was that in a country, let's just say if they've got lots of mahogany, it becomes their pallet wood because it's just a throwaway, right? But then your eyes did that. Like guys would be like, give me that stuff. For the distributors listening would be like the craft industry would just love that, or however else they want to use it.
Yep. But
here's something else that was a curiosity for me is, where did you get resistance in the supply chain? Like, did you get it at the federal level, the state level, maybe inspectors not understanding what you're doing, coming and going, this is never going to work? Like, where did you hit that on like an administrative resistance level for your output product?
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned over the years is, how do you change an industry or a process without actually changing the points you're touching, right? So how do you deliver change without truly changing somebody else's workflow? And it's hard, right? But if I go to my customers and I say, hey, you got to change your workflow, you got to change your inspectors. We use inspectors as a good example, right? Yeah, try and change an inspector's process, right? The customer's like, oh,
no.
Yeah. And so what I did is, when we looked at our workflow process, we said, first, our source material is waste, right? So how do we take this from demo contractors, give them a financial incentive, and workflow, right?
Yeah.
And so, like you touched on earlier, the demo contractors, they're paying money to get rid of this material, right? So there's a huge incentive. If I come to them and say, hey, I'll take it for free from you, they're like, how many truckloads do you want?
Right.
And so I just work well. And then the great thing about wood, because it's a commodity, once it's metal free, I can sell it into the existing supply chain, right? Because they're used to buying truckloads of lumber coming from mills, random lengths, different sizes and qualities. And so we can regrade and quality stamp and do all that, just like coming out of the virgin mills. It is a touch harder, like you mentioned, but if I'm sending it to somebody that's going to plane it or glue it up into an engineered product, the harder wood's actually better for them.
Right.
And they just care about metal free.
Right. But if they're framing it, if they're using it for framing, and again, I guess I'm going back to the main use of that dimensional lumber, does it matter if it's a little bit harder, or does that have an impact on engineering, like brittle?
Not so much on the engineering side, more on the framers and like you touched on, pounding a nail into it, right? If I try and hand pound a nail into a 100-year-old 2x4 versus a 6-month, a single swing, I could drive a 16 penny nail to the virgin one, right?
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to bend a few. And so we've talked more with the engineered wood folks, right? The ones that are going to turn into a manufacturing facility or nail gun lines versus hand framing out in the field.
Yeah. Interesting. And so the government hasn't given you any resistance? There hasn't been something at the state level where they're like, hang on, we've got to check this for mold before we introduce, maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud.
Well, the good news is the virgin folks have a way worse problem because there's more moisture in the virgin one.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? Yours has been seasoned in situ.
Super dry.
Yeah.
Because if not, it rotted and fell down, right? If it didn't stay dry, the building, we didn't salvage it because the building fell down. And so what's cool is, a lot of those issues that you have with virgin wood, we don't have because of that dryness. It's really dry, really high quality, really straight, tighter grains, less. Because if you go back through time, the best quality wood was done 100 years ago, right? When we were doing old trees. The stuff that gets harvested today is all coming out of tree farms. It's lower quality, fast grown trees harvested earlier, 30, 40-year-old type trees coming down.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge win. It's cool to have a product that we're actually saving from the landfill that's higher quality than what you get brand new.
Yeah. It's amazing to think of the applications of this, that they're going to be, I would imagine that we don't even know what they're going to be in the future, but robots have hit construction, and they've started to pick away at some of the jobs that, some of us used to have, which is pulling nails out of wood.
Yeah. The nice thing about this one is, most other robotics projects I've worked on in construction, we're augmenting or replacing craft labor. This one, it's very few people are doing that, right? There's nobody working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year pulling nails. It's a pretty brutal job to do it full time. And it's why nobody's reclaiming lumber. And so we're actually coming in and solving a problem with machines that humans have kind of said, hey, that's too hard for us, right? It's repetitive. It's hard on the bodies. The economics doesn't work.
It's not worth doing. It's probably not worth doing, right?
Right. How many carpenters do you see when they screw up on a 2x4, either cut it too short or put nails in it? They just huck it in a bin and grab another one, right?
That would drive me nuts, but yes.
Yes.
That would drive me absolutely nuts, but yes, I could see that happening. So when you say you're going on site, are you like at a central, let's say, recycling facility, and then people are bringing their wood there? Or are you looking for sites that are tearing down, let's say, a 4-story walk-up where they're going to have X linear feet coming out and you'll be able to work there for a week? What's the best application for you guys on this?
Yeah, so we're doing both. And that's what the pilot projects are. So like you said, like a 4-story walk-up, maybe it's a 100, 200 unit building type thing. And somebody's tearing it down, and you're going to generate a lot of material coming out of it, right? And so there, once they start taking down the building, we've got some room to set up. We can process all the wood there and then ship it off on flatbed trucks to its next destination. But then there's, what do you do with all the small projects, right? What happens if it's just one walk-up? Everybody's tearing down the model, right? Well, all those guys are going to those waste facilities. And so we're partnering with them to operate out those waste facilities. And so we clean the materials. So after the contractor empties their pickup truck or their dump truck, then we get all the wood from the waste facility, we clean it all up, and then we sell it back into the ecosystem.
And are you selling that through brokers, or do you go straight to the retailers? Are some of the retailers starting to come to you saying, hey, we could use some of this stuff? Because do you remember the price of a 2x4 during the pandemic?
Oh, yeah.
It just shot through the roof. Crazy. Not to mention plywood.
Yeah. Yeah. And plywood hasn't come back down. At least 2x4s came back down.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah.
I would have worked on the framing lumber. Yeah. So on the cost side, we're trying to go wholesale, for our material, truck type sales. We are talking with some of the large big box retailers about, carrying reclaimed lumber as a product line for them, because obviously they purchase large volume straight from the mills. But that's kind of where we're playing, is the truckload side. For the economics to work out, we got to move a lot of material to get our unit economics.
Yeah. Yeah. That would probably be the interesting play there, is to see where the evolution of this goes as time goes on, and how many more things we can reclaim from a project site. So right now, if I'm a builder, and let's say I'm a new home builder, a renovator would be have less volume in this situation, but I'm a new home builder and I've got a bin out front, or I've got that junk pile. I don't have to worry that eventually that's all going to get binned and then taken to a central facility, but that's where your robot would be operating.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. How much damage does your robot do to a piece of wood? If it, sometimes you've got a screw head that broke off right flush. I would imagine you've got to dimple that wood or somehow get enough purchase on that fastener. And then the next question is, does that affect the structural integrity of that piece of wood?
Yeah, so we're typically digging in. So if it's a recessed screw, recessed nail, the carpenter went nuts and smashed in really deep, we're going down about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 get underneath those heads and get them out. So it's still, for the most part, surface damage that we're doing to the wood, right? We're not putting big holes in that. We're not drilling out the fastener. So the real thing we're doing is you can apply the existing grading rules, right, that they use for virgin lumber. Right. Looking for not deficiencies and holes in the wood and stuff like that. So as long as, that piece of wood doesn't have like a big 2-inch, plumbing hole through it, it should be fine. But the ones that have the big holes, or that you have to take a big hole to get the fast right, you just slice it into two pieces, cut out the damaged piece, and then you can finger join it back together.
Oh, right.
Stretch it back out, essentially.
Yeah. Where do you expect the biggest adoption to be then on this kind of stuff? At the state level or the federal level, or like even a city level where they're starting to mandate it or look for it?
So we're seeing most of the legislation at the city level, where they're requiring deconstruction. So a lot of municipalities are starting to say, hey, look, because most of the municipalities are responsible for their landfills. And so like, okay, how do we stop filling up our landfill? We don't want to go build a new one in the next X number of years.
Where are we going to put it anyways?
Right.
Yeah.
The house was hard. Imagine permitting a new landfill, right?
Yeah.
And so they're starting with these deconstruction ordinances that says, hey guys, you got to take apart these buildings, right? And reuse the materials, reuse all the plumbing fixtures, your MEPs, separate it all out, recycle, reuse. Let's stop throwing it all away. And so those jurisdictions are really helping out in terms of driving the supply of these materials, instead of just smash it up and send it to a landfill. And that's being done at the cities, cities like Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, British Columbia, San Antonio, Texas. But just some of them pass deconstruction ordinances.
Yeah. How do you deconstruct? I mean, previously, since you were trying to smash it anyways, you would just smash and trample. I mean, obviously you got to pull out the insulation and any asbestos and drywall and other types of materials. But how does that now change the deconstruction process? I mean, at the blunt instrument level, the back of the bucket on the backhoe. How are we doing it now?
So the deconstruction now is labor, right? So there are deconstruction contractors out there that specialize in it, and they are taking apart the buildings.
Yeah, that's right. There's one here. There's one in Vancouver. He's been on the show before. Yeah.
Yep.
I think he was on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank talking about his deconstruction. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, Adam there is doing great work.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool. We've been chatting with him. He's interested in our machines when we got one available for the Vancouver area. But he's great. But yeah, it's disassembling the buildings and reusing and then selling all those components back into the market. Right. So obviously some things are going to be worn out. Right. And you're not going to be able to save like drywall, for example.
Yeah.
Right. Or can I take all the drywall, separate it all out, and it can get turned into agricultural products or some other recycling stream? Like you said, the insulation, take all the insulation out. What do you do with that? Take the roof. And so it's pretty cool to see what people are doing with those products.
Yeah. It's so interesting that robots are starting to hit pieces of the industry that we didn't think they were going to. Well, here, let's end on this kind of note. Where do you think the future of robotics is going to be in construction and contracting?
It's definitely in the physical aspects of building and deconstructing buildings, right? It's those hard, laborious tasks where people are like, I don't want to sit in a dust mask 8 hours a day, sanding concrete or pointing walls, or right. It's hazardous. It's hard on the body. It's right. People are educated enough where they're like, there's better options. Yeah. I want to be in a control booth overseeing a fleet of machines, making sure they're all running and maintenance on them. I don't want to be at the front of a sander on concrete, which is great because it's way safer and healthier for those employees not to be sitting there with silica dust or asbestos or all these other chemicals that we've introduced in construction. And so I think we're going to see more of that. The building industry, AI doesn't build buildings. You need a physical tool, and that's where the robots come into effect, whether it's building them or disassembling or deconstructing them. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the space.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be pretty cool in the future. As we're looking at our kids and wondering what jobs they're going to have in the future, maybe they are going to be in construction, but they're going to be running, a remote operated drone that paints rooms. That's a repetitive task, or does ceilings, or I'm sure at some point they'll be mudding and taping drywall, right? Because it's just a matter of time before that happens. And then now we've got the deconstruction side, which is going to have another pretty interesting aspect.
Yep. Actually, I know a company with a drywall finishing robot. That's great.
They already have it, do they?
They do.
It's only a matter of time. Well, is this in Europe already? This kind of tooling, or are you guys the first?
So we're the first in the world that we're aware of. With
Wow, congratulations.
like the Australians and New Zealand, down in Southeast Asia and Japan, nobody else is aware of anybody else doing this.
Wow. I see trade show travel in your future.
Yes.
A lot of it. Eric, this is so cool. I appreciate it. This is the robot love story that we're talking about. If somebody wants to find you, find out more, research it, start to incorporate it into their bank of knowledge, how do we find you in this big, wide world?
Yeah. Hit us up on our website, urbanmachine.build, or follow us on LinkedIn for updates. Just search for Urban Machine on there and you'll find us. And we're cranking along, building robots, cleaning wood, and growing from the ground up.
I love it. And where in the world are you based?
We are based in Oakland, California.
I'm going to be down there soon for a lacrosse tournament.
Nice. Come visit. We'll take you out to one of our pilot sites.
Yeah, might do that. All right. Well, thanks, Eric, very much for being a guest on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dominic. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. And folks, stay tuned. In the next segment, I'm going to be dissecting a business problem and talking to you about a solution for making it work in your favor.
Okay, let's do this. Eric, thank you for being on the show, of course. But now I want to do the outro where I start off with a quick dad joke to get your mind open to the opportunities. Today's dad jokes are going to be in honor of Eric because we're going to do a bunch of robot dad jokes. So corny on top of corny. Eric, you and I had a couple of chuckles inside the episode. But folks, the reason that we do these jokes is not because, I do like joking around, but it's not because I don't take things seriously. It's because we can be so confident in the fact that we're moving forward that it's okay to take a moment and giggle. That's all it is. That's all it is. People who are really good at their job do their job and they love it. And you can just see it come through them. You obviously love your business because you're looking for ways to improve it. And so why not have a couple of laughs along the way? You might try to tell these jokes to your nieces, your nephews, your kids, the neighbors, your grandchildren, whoever it is, and enjoy it. You're probably going to blow it like I do. Maybe you do it better than I do. Heck, if you do it better than I do, record it as an audio and send it back. But either way, just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. We're going to get to, want to get to a business case at the end of the dad jokes, because I want you to understand a new way of looking at the business from my perspective as a business coach, as a turnaround guy, as a guy who's built and sold a couple companies, if you don't mind me saying that. So I want to share the business case use with you and what we do about it. And then there's, if you want something, you can actually have a visual, a nice little picture that goes along with that. But anyways, let me give you some dad jokes here. You guys ready? Dad joke time. Hey, what's a robot's favorite type of music? Heavy metal. And if that's the case, what kind of band do you think robots love to listen to? Metallica. And then, of course, now after the concert, where they're going to want to go, what do you think robots' favorite food is? It's got to be microchips, right? Microchips. Robots' favorite food all day long. Yeah. Now, as you're at the robot restaurant with your robot friend eating their microchips, you'll notice that some robots are insecure. Do you know why? It's because their intelligence is artificial. Artificial. Oh, these jokes just get worse. They get worse and worse all as they go, and I still keep delivering them. Hey, what's a robot's favorite type of exercise? Circuit training. Boom. Okay, good. Listen, today I want to talk to you about something that we have as a free download. We haven't really talked about it much, but it came up the other day in conversation when I had two business partners. They're not family members. They're gentlemen who got together in business. We deal with lots of family companies. This was not the case here. And I was trying to help them get just a step back and take a picture at the growth their company was in and where they were stuck, because there was a little stuck point. The stuck point was actually all around getting numbers. One of the partners was not really keen on starting to do numbers. So let me back up even a little bit more. The partner who wasn't keen on doing the numbers side is the partner who's doing more of the field work. The other one that's doing more of the office, the estimating, project management was more interested in the numbers side. And so there was a little bit of a stuck point there. One partner was saying, I don't know why we need numbers. I already know what's going on. I got my finger on the pulse of the whole thing. And the other one is saying, well, I need to see a bigger picture of things. And I want us to be able to talk about the business at another level other than project by project, because we're not running a project, we're running a company. And it's just there was no friction there. It just couldn't see things the same way. We weren't on the same page. And so when we're not on the same page as business owners, one of the tools that I use as a business coach for getting people on the same page is visuals. There's always some sort of picture, because we can, all of us can understand a picture. And even more importantly, we can point to a picture. I know that sounds so dumb, doesn't it? But people can point to a picture. One guy can say, I think we're here. The other guy said, I think we're more here. Actually, we're between those two. And you start to have an understanding, but you can actually literally put your finger on the picture and say, oh, this is where we are. Oh, this is where we're not. This is where we need to get to. Just like a map, right? And so it's called the Construction Millionaire Group. There. What's it called? Construction Millionaire Blueprint. I should be able to say the word blueprint on this show. How come that didn't come out of my mouth? You guys know how to text me. Just send me a message at 315-903-7853 and say blueprint. And then I will know that you want the Construction Millionaire Blueprint. It's just a one-pager. You print it off. It's like a poster. It's in color, which is nice. You print it off, have one for each you and your partner. Maybe you've got family members in the business and you're trying to get them on board with some changes you want to make, or your vision, like where you want to take the company, where you feel you're stuck. Well, now you got this picture to do it with. Anyways, it's a flow chart. Think about it as one simple picture on one page. So it's nice and simple. You guys know I like simple systems. We don't need to overcomplicate things. But the goal of this is so you can see where you stand and where you need to get to next. So like I said, it's almost like a map, right? You say, we're here. I want to get there. And then you can look at there's 3 blocks in between where you are today and where you want to get to. And you say in that next block, oh, we need to go do this. And then we need to go do this. And really, I created this many, many years ago as a tool to help some of the coaches who work for me understand how to untangle a business and break it into its smaller parts to show other people how to turn around their companies. How is that for a complicated sentence? Sorry. Some of you may not know this, but I used to train business coaches. My last company before I started the podcasts, I was what's a kind of a pompous title. I'm going to tell you. I was the global master franchisor for a business coaching company. And so I had 237 business coaches around the world. And their job was to do exactly what I'm doing here with you. I'm trying to add value to your business so you can see easy ways to take action and change something in your business. I sold that company. But while I was at the company, it was my job to train and support all of the business coaches in what they're doing. Now, I've always had a background in construction and contracting, which is what I love. And so as soon as I sold the company, you do what anybody else who sold the company does. First, you sleep in. Second, you think, where am I going to go on vacation? And third, after you're on vacation for a little while, you go, I'm so bored. And so I started the podcast. And here we are. But anyways, this flow chart actually is something I built years ago because I needed to show new business coaches how to take an existing business owner, that's you, through a path from getting from where they are today, point X on the map, to where they want to be, point Y on the map, and all the roadblocks that they can expect to hit on the way. So that's the flow chart, right? It's one simple picture. Now it's got a formal title, your decision to build it, sell it, or keep it for cash flow. So no matter what you want to do with your business, you follow the same trajectory, right? Whether you want to build the business, sell the business, or keep the business running for cash flow. So you can, this way you can see the order of operations, the logic, the flow that I go through in my mind as a business coach and that I've taught other business coaches to do as well. And as you guys know, I've done it. I've sold a couple of businesses now and definitely learned the hard way. And I have to be the first one to say, I do not have all the answers. Now, I've been trained in the right questions and I've seen many, many situations, but I still feel like I'm a pretty young guy and I've got a long way to go. And I don't think I'm done learning yet, but I'm happy to share what I've learned already. And I'm going to keep sharing as I learn and as I go. And so this is already something that I've shared many times with other people and hopefully you like it. But, you're going to see things on this like pinch points. Once you see the blueprint, you're going to see where you might feel stuck. Like I said, it's just easy. It was made to be easy. That's why it's a flow chart. It's a blueprint. The logic is right there. If I'm stuck at point X, well, then I just go back and look at the flow chart and go, oh, I get it. It's because we're actually stuck at point D, way above here. And you just go back and fix that thing. So it's kind of a self-analysis, self-help guide. Anyways, grab it if you want it. Just send me the word blueprint to my cell. The cell is 315-903-7853. You guys know by now that I changed my cell phone number because for years I was putting my real cell phone number out there and a bunch of telemarketers got their hands on it. So this is still a cell phone number. It just goes through a bit of a filter to make sure that I don't get telemarketers texting me on there because it just takes me away from being able to share a download or get back in touch with people if I need to. So the new number is 315-903-7853. By the way, use it the way I used it. Let's say you're the business owner or the partner in the company that does want to see some changes, and you've got a partner who's not on board or just isn't part of that normal part of the decision making, but you want to help them see what decisions you're trying to make to drive the company forward. Print this off, take 2 copies, 3 copies, or if it's a big family business, 5 copies. For the Waltons, 7, give everybody a piece of paper. Say, hey, today I want to show you the business operations flow chart for how you turn around a business. And this is where we are today. And everybody looks at it and goes, I think we're here right now. And everybody say, well, I think we're here. I think we're here. Good. Okay. So we're somewhere there in the top third. Everybody agrees. You say, well, I'd like us to get to here in the bottom third of the flow chart, right? Towards the, the ending point. And everybody goes, I think we should be here. I think we should be there. But either way, it's the bottom third. You're in the top third now. And then you could say to everybody, look, the gaps, as long as we agree we're somewhere at the top of this flow chart now, but we're not at the bottom of it, here are the gaps we can anticipate. And here's what I'd like to do. And then you lay your idea on the table, right? So business coaching is not random. It's just not chatting. It's not like just a visit with Dom or a visit with Coach Lee. It's not. There's a very structured and formulaic way of putting simple systems in place in a company. But the first thing you have to do is decide. You have to have focus. You have to decide on what you're going to talk about. So anyways, this will help you with the focus. So anyways, send me the word blueprint. That should be easy to type. Blueprint on your phone. Just text it off to me at 315-903-7853. And then we'll shoot it back to you. And then you can print it off and share it with everybody. So yeah, just send me a message on my cell. Say the word blueprint to 315-903-7853. Thanks, folks. Have a great day. I look forward to the day when we can meet face to face.